is Catherine, and welcome to the first edition of the BackstageKatKnits podcast. Thank you so much for listening in. First, a little bit about where you can find me. I'm on Ravelry at BackstageKatKnits. That's cat with a K. You can also find me on Twitter or Instagram at BackstageKath. And I have a Tumblr blog where I'll keep the show notes for this podcast, and that's BackstageKatKnits.tumblr.com. All that information will be down there in the comment section, so go check it out. I'd love for you to connect, and we'll chat about knitting and stuff. So I thought I'd start a podcast. I'm still fairly new to knitting, actually, and so I thought it would be cool to kind of chronicle my journey a little bit. I started knitting about 7 months ago, and so it would be fun to kind of chronicle me as I get better. I think I'm pretty okay, but still have a lot to learn, still a lot of big projects that I haven't attempted yet, so I thought it'd be fun for all of us to share that experience together. The podcast community online about knitting seems really awesome, and I'd love to be part of it, so figured I'd give that a shot. I wanted to start off with some finished objects. A lot of them aren't recent, but before I do that, a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Catherine. I actually work in an insurance company here in Hartford, Connecticut, and so I've lived in Connecticut all my life, and insurance is what I do, and so it's nice to come home and do something a little more creative when I get to knit. I love my job. It's awesome. I do some really, really cool things, but it's nice to have that creative outlet as well. So like I said, I've been knitting since last November. Kind of took it up so I could hang out with my friends who started crocheting. We never did have that, like, let's hang out in my apartment and knit and crochet together night, but definitely it was still worth it. So the first project I did, when I went online and just said, I'm going to make a scarf. And so I went to Ravelry, found the pattern for the Gaptastic Calla by Jen Geigley, went to Michael's and got some Lion brand Woolies Chunky, and just knit up this Gaptastic Calla, added some stripes. I wore this every day in the winter on my way to work. It was so cold this winter, it snowed all the time, and so this was really nice to kind of, I didn't wear it like this, but to keep me warm, button my coat up around it, nice and warm, could, cover my face with it at the bus stop. So that was my first knitting project after a long time. I had done some in middle school, a few garter-stitched scarves and things, so this was nice. It was great because it was seed stitch, so I got to do both knitting and purling in my first attempt back into knitting things. My next attempt was also a scarf, and this is one where I saw it on the pattern browser and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool looking, and then I saw the name and was like, I must knit this immediately. The pattern is called the Marble Scarf. It doesn't specifically say that it's a reference to Agatha Christie's old lady detective who knits Jane Marple, but I choose to believe it is a reference to her. This is a great project for me to learn increases and decreases, kind of going out on the edges. You can see there my beginning and my end are a little bit different, so I'm not really quite sure what I did wrong. And also the keyhole, which looks complicated but was super easy. My favorite story about this was I saw the pattern required stitch mark or safety pins, but I was like, I don't really know what that means, so didn't buy a safety pin. And so I started to knit to this, and I got to this point, and it was like, put your stitches on the safety pin and knit them on the other needle, and I was like, wasn't clever enough to think about putting them on like a spare knitting needle I had, whatever. So I found a zip tie from my Tech Week bag, and so put half the stitches on the zip tie, and then, knit this up and the other half, and there you go. So it was pretty fun, little Miss Marple scarf. Then I was like, well, let me just dive in and do a stranded colorwork project, because, why not? So I found a great pattern, the Elephant Beanie by Stitch and Liz on Ravelry, and I knit up a colorwork hat. And so, as you can see, I have, none of my ends are sewn in, because I have not ever actually worn this in public. But it was just a great project for me to learn stranded colorwork knitting. I bought the book Mastering Color Knitting by Melissa Leapman, and so it was just a great project for me to learn. Originally, the pattern called for Knit Picks palette yarn, but I was having a hard time with it in my first colorwork project, trying to work with it and play with it, so I ended up switching to their Gloss DK yarn, which was really, really nice to work with. I'm okay with it. As you can see, it's weirdly shaped, like it's too big with when I went up a needle size. And there's some weird sections where I didn't do a good job of, like, keeping the stitches not too tight as I went from one magic loop to the other. But these look like elephants, and these look like hearts, so that's pretty awesome. my most recent finished, then I was like, I should probably buy a nice yarn, because the world of nice yarn is awesome. There's so many like indie dyers and indie yarn makers, and so I went to this company called Nice and Knit. They're based here in Connecticut, but they were actually having a trunk show in Boston, and I know a lot of people in Boston, so I went up kind of for the day and went to their trunk show and bought a skein of their worsted weight yarn in the surf colorway and knit a little hat, and this hat was written by them. It's just on the Nice and Knit Ravelry page, their designs. It's free. And then I found a free pattern called 75 Yard Mitts that I found on a blog through Ravelry, and just knit a little matching pair of little hand warmers. So this was my first nice yarn purchase. The yarn is beautiful. You can see it's mostly teal, but there's some kind of navy, kind of emerald in there, and beautiful to work with. So this was my first like nice yarn purchase, independent dyer's purchase. Now I've had hair after wearing those two hats. My most recent project was the Hitchhiker Shawl, scarf shawl, which I know basically everyone on Ravelry probably has knit at some point in their lives. But I knit this in a yarn called Yarns to Inspire, in their Wonder yarn in the Northern Lights colorway. And so Yarns to Inspire, the woman who owns it, actually works at Knit and Pearls, which is a yarn store in Avon, Connecticut, which is pretty close to where I live. So I bought this actually for their summer camp project, which I'll talk about in just a sec, and actually won a giveaway for completing this project. So it's pretty cool. I love how the yarn knit up. It's not pooling at all. It's beautiful, like purple with blues and yellows and greens and browns, and it just came out looking lovely. I did block this and it grew a lot, which I thought I wanted it to do, but now that it is, I kind of wish it had stayed small, but it's the Hitchhiker. Would knit the pattern again. Yarns to Inspire was lots of fun. Beautiful, beautiful dyed yarn. That brings me to work in progress. I have kind of a lot. I need to work on actually finishing things. So, but like I said, Knit and Pearls has this cool thing called Summer Camp, where for June, July, and August, they have a challenge, and you knit a project based on that challenge using yarn from Knit and Pearls, and if you knit it in the time period of the month and post to their Facebook page, you can win prizes. So for June, the challenge was knit with a yarn you'd never used before, so I used the Yarns to Inspire. And for July, it's a color work pattern you haven't used before. So I cracked open my Mastering Color Knitting book, and I decided to dive into double knitting. So I'm actually going to do some dishcloths, just as a quick, easy way to kind of learn double knitting. Dishcloths, coasters, pot holders, whatever you want to call them. I bought 2 skeins of Cascade Luna in this kind of muted teal, I like teal, and this kind of beigeish gray colorway, and I'm going to make a bunch of dishcloths. So I'm a few rows into my first attempt. It's coming out pretty well. I found these cool, like, coffee and teapot yarn holders pattern on Ravelry, but that wasn't really working for me, so I figured I'd just use some of the stitches that are in this book and kind of do that. So I'm probably going to do, this is the checkerboard one, is the one I'm starting with over here, and then I'm probably going to do, I like this like squiggly wavy line one, and then maybe this one, and that will probably use up all the yarn that I bought, so that will be my July challenge. The big project that I'm working on right now is a shawl. It is the Summer Shawl Knit Along 2015 by Velvet de Shawn, and here it is. This is my first project, big sort of all over lace project. I had done a little bit of lace on the edge of another shawl I made for my mom for Mother's Day, but this is kind of a shawl that she's doing in weekly installments. I'm a little bit behind. This is sort of the middle of week 3 where I'm up. You can see all my stitch markers for all the repeats, and actually week 6 is coming out tomorrow. So I'm not gonna make it, sort of along with everybody else, although there are a lot of people who are, I think, where I'm at too. So it's kind of got this big cherry leaves pattern down at the bottom here, and then kind of goes into this smaller leaves pattern, which is a little bit hard to see, sort of where I'm at. And then there's going to be a lattice section and then a knit-on border. So the yarn for this is yarn that was dyed especially for this knit along. Fairy Tale hand-dyed sock it's called. I think it's also called Gold Star. So it's got these little gold flakes running through it. She hand-dyed sets of 3, and you got it when you bought the pattern from that from her online store. I assume it's her. I don't know. So it's got like nice gold specks running through it. My colors is teal and maroon, a little bit of light navy. So as you can see, these two, I'm actively working on the shawl body with, and then this one I'll do the border because it is significantly lighter. So that's been my biggest project. It's probably taken up most of my knitting time this past few weeks. I have 2 other shawls on my needles because I started this shawl knit along and I was like, I must knit, or no, I started the hitchhiker and then I was like, I love shawls, whoops, I must knit all the shawls. So I got 2 others. The first is another knit along, and this is being hosted by Petra Breakstone. She wrote a pattern called Waves Gone By, and she did it in conjunction with Shelley from Haute Knit Yarns. And so you bought Haute Knit Yarn in the Ultra Soft Merino Superwash, which is a fingering weight, and you knit Petra's pattern, Waves Gone By. So the yarn is that Haute Knit yarn in Another Galaxy, which I love this colorway. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm not usually a big pink person, especially hot pink, but I love how this looks in the skein, and then as it's being knitted up. This is on size 7 needles. That's the back, here's the front. So it's coming out pretty well. Right now it looks sort of more scarf width than shawl width, but supposedly when you block it aggressively, it will kind of grow to more shawl width. So I'm doing this in size 7 needles. You can also do size 9. I originally cast on, decided, it's a little too big and loopy and lacy. I like it a little tighter, so went to size 7. But I definitely would buy another skein of the Haute Knit yarn and knit again because the pattern is super easy to memorize. It's lots of fun. I've been doing this on my on the bus on the way to work this morning. I have a pretty short bus ride though, so not a lot's gotten done. My final work in progress is a shawl that I got actually as part of my June yarn box subscription. It is on Ravelry. The pattern is Calla by Gabriella Henry. It's this beautiful sort of eyelet lace shawl. The yarn that came with the subscription was Mrs. Crosby's Carpet Bag. Carpet Bag is the name of the yarn, and I got the Midnight Aubergine colorway. And so as you can see, I've gotten pretty far. I'm sort of in the middle of a row right now. Something has gone a little bit wonky. I think I added too many stitches at one point. I'm not really sure what happened, so gotta figure that out. Right now I'm sort of in the middle of the row until I do. But made some good progress on this as I was in some big, long sort of business meetings last week. But the yarn is beautiful. It's so soft. It was one of those things where I saw it in the yarn box, and none of the yarn box subscriptions as far, I think April was my first month, had really kind of spoken to me. I was like, these are nice yarns, but nothing I want to like knit with right this second. But I opened this box, I'm like, I must knit that pattern immediately. I must use this yarn. It's beautiful. This is in my little knit picks bag. I need project bags. Like that's the new thing that I need to get into in knitting. There's so many beautiful ones out there. So I only have this one and then my Feeling Superfine one, and they're both from Knit Picks, which I love this one. But I want some cool like independent ones from Etsy. So I'm gonna be going Etsy browsing at some point soon. At the end of my works in progress, as far as acquisitions, I went to Webb's today. It's about 45 minutes away from me. It was totally worth it. So, but you know, I have like 5 works in progress. I probably should not buy more yarn, but what are you gonna do? So, one of the podcasts that I've been really enjoying as I've started listening to podcasts is the Knitting Expat podcast that's hosted by Mina. And so she actually designed a pattern, and she's doing a knit along for that pattern. It's called the Sun Rays Shawl. And so it's kind of a stockinette body of the shawl and then a lace border. So I said sun rays, I need to get something orangey and yellow. So these are the yarns I bought. I'm going to do the main part of the body in the variegated yarn, which is Madeline Tosh Twist Light. And their fingering weight, and this is the Daffodil colorway. It's a little bit, not more muted, it looks kind of intense in this camera when I'm looking at it, but it's beautiful, beautiful kind of oranges and yellows and golds. And then for the lace edging, just so it's a little bit clearer and not so variegated, and breaks it up a little bit, I'm going to use this goldenrod kind of color. This is the Dream Smooshy Sock Weight in the Amber Glass colorway. So I'm not sure what I'm going to get to casting that on. I think it's a pretty long knit along. I may not make it in the time of the knit along. It may end up being my August project for Knit and Pearls because that's using a pattern you've never used before. So maybe, maybe not. I've also got shawl plans for 2 skeins of yarn that I bought actually as a birthday gift. My parents gave me a gift certificate to Village Wool in Glastonbury. And so I picked up 2 skeins of Calla, which is the company's name is B-A-A-H. This is Calla's their fingering weight. I have a skein of sage and a skein of hazelnut. And I'm going to make, my dream is to make a striped shawl out of these. I may make Red Rover by Carolyn Kern again, or maybe try a new stripe pattern that I find. But I want something that will use up pretty much all of both of these skeins and not have too much, so I don't have to buy another one. So don't quite have an idea, but dream in my head of a striped shawl with these 2 colors. And then finally today at Webb's, the last thing I picked up was my self-striping yarn. It's this cool, like, sort of muted rainbow, which I like. Like I think I said before, I don't really usually like hot pinks and neons. I'm not really a neon girl. But this one's a little more muted, which I do like. Doesn't have a lot of the reds, which I'm totally fine with. I'm not a big red person. So there's that. I did actually buy a book that hopefully I'll get to use this for, called Bigfoot Knits by Andy Smith. I have big feet. They're kind of like swollen. I have big ankles, and so a lot of sock patterns, like in my sort of Learn to Knit Socks $10 book I got at Michael's, I knit a sock, one sock with it, and it just doesn't really fit on my foot, especially in the summer. So I'm hoping to use that Bigfoot Knits book to make socks with this yarn. That's it. Oh, one last thing. I mentioned that I won the Knit and Pearls June giveaway for completing the Hitchhiker Scarf. And so I won a hanging needle case by Della Q. And what you do, this is really great. It's basically helps you keep your hanging knitting needles organized and not all twisty with the cables. So you kind of thread your cables through here, and they hang down like this, and they kind of can relax a little bit, and you hang this up in your closet or whatever, and then if you needed to, you could kind of fold them in amongst itself and roll it all up or fold it all up, and it goes with you on the go. It does have like little sticker tags, the different needle sizes. I don't have that many standalone circular knitting needles, so I'm probably just going to use this to keep like the exchangeable cables. I have a couple of different exchangeable sets, so I'm probably going to hang the cables in that and find some other way to label them. But there's that. This was my prize from the June Knit Along. It's probably going to hang, like, my dresser is kind of on top of my dresser, and next to my dresser is where I keep all my knitting stuff, so it's probably going to find some way to affix this to I guess this is the top. It's got a little zipper, little pocket there for, I don't know, small maybe cable needles and stuff, or those little cable keys, cable ends I could keep in there maybe. So there's that. That's it, I promise, for knitting stuff. Didn't want to kind of talk about my life, but if you want, feel free to tune out now if you're not interested in me and just want to hear about the knitting. But I do want to talk about like theater, because my username is BackstageKatKnits on Ravelry, BackstageKat and other places, and so I really like theater. I got involved in theater in high school, actually. I was in the pit orchestras for a couple of different shows, both at my high school and at a teen community theater. And then once I went to college, kind of the first week I was there, met up with people who were in the theater company and just kind of loved hanging out with them and loved hanging out in the theater, and threw myself in. My school did 2 plays in musical every year, so I got to do a lot of stuff. I've stage managed, I've costume designed, I don't sew, but I kind of like put together the theme and tracked down existing costume pieces, set construction, front of house, sort of lighting, you name it, I've done it, especially at college, and I've gotten to do some since graduating, which has been great. So some things I'm excited about, first of all, is the Musical Theater MASH, Musical Theater MASH YouTube channel here. Go watch it if you love theater. The guy who runs it is hilarious. He's so funny. He's really insightful, too, about theater. Like, I'm learning about acting and theater in ways that I haven't before, all while laughing all the time. It's a great YouTube channel if you love theater. And then tonight, actually, maybe next weekend, I think I'm going to go see The Secret Garden at Rocky Hill Community Theater. I actually know people who are in it. The woman who founded the theater company that I've done the most with here in Connecticut, her and her 2 daughters are both in Secret Garden. So that's going to be really fun. What else is going on in my life? Let's see, my test. So I'm studying to get my CPCU designation, Chartered Property Casualty Underwriter. It's a big insurance designation. It's a series of 8 tests, and I'm on number 3. I failed it once already, so really trying to study hard to take it next Saturday to hopefully pass. And 3 down, 5 to go will be my goal after next Saturday. So lots of flashcards. The one for this one is business law. So I think I'm going to record every 2 weeks. So hopefully next time you see me, I will be done with my business law test. I think that's it. It's a beautiful summer day. It's a little warm here in Connecticut. I may go to Elizabeth Park. It's not too far away from where I live, and knit a little bit outside, study a little bit outside, put on some sunscreen. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to ask me any questions. I enjoy getting to know each and every one of you who watches my podcast. Until next time, see you backstage. Trying that as a tagline. We'll see how it works. Peace out, everyone.